NFL draft storylines. Cam Ward, quarterback for Washington State, enters the 2024 NFL draft. Can he leapfrog Michael Penix Jr. and J.J. McCarthy? We're going to talk about this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every single day. And thank y'all for being our every single dayers. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. I got to kick this introduction over to my brother, my partner in crime, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Bengal Tigers, man. Bring you championship level content each and every single day. Man, listen, this is the podcast, man. We talk everything college football. We talk everything NFL football. And like we like to say, man, it all starts with the NFL draft 24/7, 365. I want to give a big shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. If you haven't liked already, go ahead and like this. Hit the like button because this will be a good show. If you haven't commented, man, just wait to the end of the show. Wait to the middle of the show. We start firing off our opinions, man. Go ahead and drop a comment in there. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. DP, listen, man, we're talking Cam Ward, another quarterback, DP, added to this quarterback race. And it's a must that we have this conversation. One of the more toolsy quarterbacks. We've seen comparisons of Patrick Mahomes. We've seen comparisons of, these other freelance quarterbacks, right? We're going to talk about how high can he go in the draft process. We're going to do our classic stock up, stock down segment, and then we're going to wrap this thing up with the game ball segment. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit it with our title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Cam Ward, Keith. Guys, quarterback from the University of Washington State, and transfer from Incarnate Word, I believe it is how you pronounce that, the name of that school. And this was a guy we talked about a couple weeks ago, Keith, where it's like, man, he entered the transfer portal. We thought he was staying in college. Listed at 6'2", 220, 225 pounds. He's got looks like an NFL quarterback. On the season, he had a good season statistically, right? 66.6 yards. 66.6 completion percentage. Threw for over 3,700 yards on the season. Had 33 total touchdowns, run and pass. I think he had 25 passing and 8 rushing. This is, like you said, is a toolsy quarterback. How high can he go? Can he leapfrog where J.J. McCarthy is, or Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr.? Out of those names, Keith, I think there's only one guy he probably couldn't leapfrog, and maybe that's Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix is a made man. You know what I'm saying? I think people know what you're getting with Michael Penix. I think people who really watch the tape and really pay attention, and you say, man, J.J. McCarthy, high upside, we don't know what we're going to get from him. Like, you just don't know. It's not enough reps, even with 2 years as a starter. Cam Ward has played as a full-time starter for 4 straight years, right? 2 at Wazoo. I think he can leapfrog a Bo Nix. To me, the tools are better. He's a good athlete. You know what I'm saying? Good size and height, weight, and build. Arm talent, arm angles. I think accuracy-wise, he's better. I think there's a higher ceiling for him, and I don't think he's as scheme-dependent as, which is crazy because he comes from an air raid offense, Keith. So you tell me how you feel about that. I don't think he's as scheme-dependent as a Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix has to go to a scheme like the Sean McVays, like the Kyle Shanahans, Kevin O'Connell situations where they're going to give you a lot of easy layups. They're going to read the field for you, and I think that's what he's going to need to succeed. I think Cam Ward absolutely can leapfrog those guys, just not Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix is probably going to be solidified as QB4.
Yeah, with DP, look, I'm going to answer this question by starting with the reason why I think that it's a good like a good option for Cam Ward to declare for the NFL draft, right? And I'm gonna do that, DP, by just reading off of some of the teams that need quarterbacks, right? Watch this. I'm gonna start at Tampa Bay, sitting at pick 20, right? Then you go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, sitting at pick 18. Then you scroll up a little bit. The Denver situation has been well documented, right? They need a quarterback. Pick 13, New Orleans Saints need a quarterback. Pick 12. The Minnesota Vikings need a quarterback. Pick 11, the Las Vegas Raiders need a quarterback. Pick 9, the Atlanta Falcons need a quarterback. Pick 5, the New York Giants need a quarterback. DP, that's almost 9 teams. That's literally I think I just read off pick 11 through 15, DP, that needs a quarterback, right? And I don't think that it's one of those situations where, the 2022 draft where teams kind of could afford to pass up, where only Kenny Pickett was drafted and it's like, we'll wait. Do some better. It's like, nah, we can't do that, right? Like, y'all tried the veterans. We wear the Jimmy Garoppolo train out, right? The Jimmy Garoppolo thing is wore out, DP. We're done, right? Like that. There's no more in quarterbacks like him, right? So we've even went through. If you look through, what's our guy that was playing for the Minnesota Vikings, Josh Dobbs, right? We went through that hype cycle. We went through the Tommy DeVito hype cycle. DP. NFL fans are tired right now, right? And it all starts, like we say, with the NFL draft process. So I'm going to start off with the reason why I think it's a good decision is because the demand is going to far outweigh the supply. And on the supply chain, when the demand far outweigh the supply supply bumps up, right? And that's exactly what I think is going to happen in this situation and in this process. So yeah, DP, I think it's a good decision for him to come out in the NFL draft because of like I said, the supply and demand situation of quarterbacks. Now, how high can he go? That's the question, right? And that's the fun part with this draft process, DP. I like the fact that you threw out the comparisons to Bo Nix, right? And you threw out the numbers because he's so I don't want to say so under the radar, but he's under the radar. But when you look at his season numbers in totality, he's like, a quarterback that threw 30-something touchdowns with 60-something completion percentage. Okay, you're ready to rock and roll, right? And if you have some talent. Now, I will say this, DP, the reason why I think he can, I look squarely at that Las Vegas at 11, Minnesota at 12, New Orleans at 13, Denver at 14, because he has the tools, right? I think he's a guy, and honestly, potentially Seattle sitting at 15. That's literally picks 11 through 15 that's sitting right there. The reason I put him in that bucket, DP, is because I think when we get through the draft process, I think we'll see his arm talent, right? He'll probably run a decent 40 time. We'll see him move. People will jump into the film. People will see some of the wild plays that he can make off script. And everybody's going to say, you know what? We can work with that, right? And I think right in that threshold, right in that honey hole, I think there is going to be a general manager that says, I can work with that, right? This guy he's taking the next step up and he's still playing fairly solid. Now, we talked about how he appears to kind of fade off, right? The back end of the season. That problem. Yeah, but I will say this too, right? He fades off as the competition elevates, which could be a reflection of the team also, right? Is that when we play better teams, our team, like there's a threshold for how talented we are, just as a team. So I think DP, I think the top 20 of the draft, and I just read off of all those teams. So if you're an NFL fan, obviously NFL fans are listening to this, right? Definitely check out Cam Ward, and we're going to do an entire breakdown on him and give you the breakdown on Cam Ward so you can know exactly who he is. But yeah, he's a quarterback prospect that you need to look at.
And it's crazy, Keith, because the consistency thing. I know some people feel like, man, go back to school and build on that, show that you can be consistent. But it's like, okay, yeah, but it's still, that's a big risk because you're going to change schools. So you change schools, you go into a new system, and if you don't play as well as you hope, right now, you plummet your 2025 stock. Well, you got to battle with Shedeur Sanders. You got to battle with Jalen Milroe.
Potentially Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers potentially. Carson Beck. All these different quarterbacks is going to be available in next year's class. Jackson Dart is going to be available, right? Like if he can do what he needs to do and show up in those big games, man, with this talent that Ole Miss is going to have, that's going to be another talented group of QBs. And like you said, the supply right now for 2024 is high. So you need to go ahead, put your name in that hat and say, go ahead and select me. I think with him, it's going to be, I want to see him at the Senior Bowl. If he has the chance, go, because that's an opportunity to get in front of the interview process, but absolutely go out there with a lot of talent at wide receiver and different things like that. Go out there and ball, man. Go out there and show the accuracy, the arm talent, all that. And he's young, Keith. I think he's only like 21 years old, going on 22. The kid is young, even though he's played 4 full seasons in college football. He's still a young kid, and to where the ceiling is untapped. The potential is untapped. It's just getting him in. He's a pot of clay. You got to get him into the hands of the right molder.
Yeah, no, I agree with DP. Listen, man, we talked about supply and demand, right? You know what else goes with supply and demand? Stock market, right? The stock market. And like you always say, man, the stock market is open, man. We're about to go through our stock up, stock down prospects, man. Listen, from this bowl season, right? There was still a lot to pull away. We know the Florida State debacle against Georgia and how that game almost looked like the national championship from last year, DP. But, man, listen, there were still a lot of players that played high-level football. And we're going to talk about these draft prospects, man, which draft prospects showed out and showcased well. So stay tuned, man, because here comes our stock up, stock down segment.
The NFL season is wrapping up, but there is still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed when they place a $5 bet. Let me repeat that. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed when they place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Listen. That is a deal you really just can't beat, okay? The app is super easy to use. There's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and so much more. So, guys, all you need to do is visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet a layup. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. The stock market is back open here on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Keith, in your region, you have USC, the Fighting Trojans, or whatever they call themselves. And and Keith, I remember you brought this young man up, and it was Taj Washington, wide receiver, 5'10", 175 pounds, and you talked about him just being consistent, consistently like producing for Caleb Williams. And on the season, this young man, 59 receptions, 1,062 yards receiving, average 18 yards per catch, and he had 8 total receiving touchdowns on the season. And off of the bowl game, right? Right after Christmas, 2 days after Christmas last week against Louisville, where USC whooped Louisville 42-28, he caught 7 receptions for 99 yards, over 14 yards per, and he had 2 receiving touchdowns. And that's what I think the young man's name is, Miller Moss, not Caleb Williams throwing the football, a guy that we didn't even know was on the roster for a lot of folks, right? And he went out there and ball. I think Taj Washington, man, this is a loaded wide receiver class. But to me, the stock is up because guys like him still have purpose in the NFL. Like, as much as people try to make this a body composition contest, where it's like, yo, you got to be the biggest, you got to have the 6'2" to 215-pound frame to be successful. Josh Downs is being successful. Tank Dell is successful. Tyler Lockett is successful. We've seen Isaiah McKenzie be successful. There are Khalil Shakir at times with the Buffalo Bills. Whenever they give him his targets, your guy, Khalil Shakir, when they give him his targets, it's successful. Taj Washington has big play speed, big playability, right? Zay Flowers didn't check those boxes, Keith. You know what I'm saying? And he's one of the best offensive rookies of the 2023 class.
Tank Dell.
So, listen, Tank Dell, all these guys, man, trust the tape. This young man can ball, and I think his stock is up.
Yeah, I like putting him on the radar, DP. Just as far as I think he's off of everyone's radar as far as as a draft prospect, period. And we talked about him a little bit. And I say, like, the back end of the draft, I like him, and I like it. It's you just talked about him. Obviously, it wasn't Caleb Williams, it was Miller Moss, right? And you kind of hinted at this, right? Is being a quarterback friendly wide receiver, right? If you can do it with multiple quarterbacks, GMs, they will find solace in drafting him because, like, you know what? You can translate to other quarterbacks. You can translate with our franchise quarterback, right? And that's what I've seen on the film. It's just a guy that naturally understands how to run through zone coverages, how to get open, right? How to find those openings. And then, what's really key, DP, as much as we keep finding these dual threat quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks that like to get out of the pocket. What is becoming increasingly more important? The scramble drill, DP, right? Like, and just being able to be on the same page with your quarterback, seeing the field the same way that the quarterback sees the field. So I definitely like the Taj Washington, mention as far as putting him in a bucket, right? When we're talking about during the draft process. DP, I'm gonna go with this, man. I'm gonna go with one of the more underwhelming. Well, I guess that considered a New Year's Six Bowl, right? It was the Cotton Bowl. No, it wasn't the Cotton. It was the Cotton Bowl. It was the Cotton Bowl, right?
I think so.
Missouri and Ohio State, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm going to talk about the losing team in that situation. I'm going to talk about edge rusher JT Tuimoloau. I'm hoping that I'm getting that right. But now he had a sack in his game, DP, and this is coming off of me watching and evaluating Olu Fashanu, and I watched the Ohio State game, right, when he went against JT Tuimoloau, and JT did some really crafty things. And I know that when we discussed it, DP, we was like, we don't get it, right? We're talking about him, Jack Sawyer, right? Like all these 5-star checked out, like you're talking about checking the height, weight, right? 6'5", 6'6", 260 pounds, right? Like that's how you make a 4-3 defensive end. But we like, the process is confusing, right? Like where are we going, right? Like that's what, when you watch the film, you say, where are we going with this? And when JT, he had a sack, right? And the defensive front played well, right? It is no fault of the defense why they lost that football game. But watching him and just watching him, win and watching the reps, I'm like, you know what? I was pretty much, I don't want to say all the way out, but I was 1 foot out and the other foot was like kind of crossing over the fence, right? Like I was crossing over the line, DP. But I'm bringing up the foot back, and I'm talking about out as far as a top 100 prospect, right? But I think I'm gaining momentum back the other way because I want, and I don't want to say it's a coaching situation, but I think it can be coached up, right? Like in just his ways to win. So I want to talk about JT Tuimoloau and then give his other teammate credit, Michael Hall, right? Like balling out. I think these defensive tackles underrated. The edge rushers get all the credit, but these defensive tackles are probably the more complete and more qualified and you know what I'm saying? They have the tape to back up. You're not going off of potential. It's already proven with those two defensive tackles. So I want to talk about Michael Hall and Tyleik Williams and get them their stock up too.
No, listen, I love to hear it, Keith, because I've been talking about those guys since the summer. You know what I mean? When I watched and I studied them over the summer, and I'm like, man, these are two really talented interior defensive linemen that can affect both parts of the game, the run and the pass. And Michael Hall, you think about the Kalijah Kansies, you think about how we talk about Byron Murphy, those kind of undersized, non-traditional size defensive linemen, but they're so quick, they're so athletic, they're so agile that they can win quickly, clear blockers, and get into the face of the quarterback. Michael Hall has done that for the last 2 years, and Tyleik Williams, powerful. And you know what I mean? He's probably more of a 3-tech to 5-tech, type of guy, but powerful against the run, stacks, sheds, but also he collapsed the pocket. He's got quick hands and quick winnability as well, flashes that potential, Keith, and it's outstanding to see. But I want to give a shout out to Caden Prezecorn, for the University of Ole Miss. And in that, in that game where, they were literally like that offense for Ole Miss was humming. And for me, with this young
DP, and I know we're not on to next year, but next year, Ole Miss, they're going to be a problem. They are going to be a SEC.
They're dominating the transfer portal too.
They killed it in the transfer portal. And we're talking about this because it's draft prospects, right? We're talking about Princely Uman-Mielen, who I gave a 3rd-round grade to, Walter Nolan, former 5-star defensive tackle prospect, and then they brought in, I think, Tyler Barron from Tennessee, was another 4-star, 5-star prospect who I think a lot of people had a top 100, top 125 grade on, and they brought in defensive backs, DP. So yeah,
they're preparing themselves for this war that's about to be in the SEC next year, and they're going to be a potential top 7 team when we get into the preseason rankings and everything.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It's for me, Keith. I got to go back to the tape and watch Caden Prezecorn, because listed at 6'5", 255 pounds, coming off of a game where against Penn State, man, he caught 10 catches for 136 yards, 13.6 yards per, and he had 2 touchdowns. So he looks like he blocks well. He has an NFL body. His from a frame standpoint, he looks like Jason Witten a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And he caught the ball well. Is he a high-end athlete? I didn't see that while I was watching the game, but what he did, he put the stock up, guys, because it's going to force me now to go watch the All-22, and let me see, what do you do every single week? Are you just not getting the targets, but you're getting open? What's going on there? Because I think he on the season, he caught 30 receptions for 449 yards and 4 touchdowns. He averaged 15 yards per catch. So you think about a guy that can win the seam, win the middle of the field, be a big body target for your quarterback. They love those type of guys, man. So I wanted to give him, let's say that his stock is up, because now I got to go back to the tape and see what this young man is all about.
Yeah, no, I definitely, he flashed for me during the game, right? It's like this guy kept consistently making plays, and I like this
over
because and you remember that coming into the season, everybody was kind of looking at his teammate Michael Trigg, right? But this guy also looks talented too, so I like bringing his name up and mentioning him in this conversation, because with this tight end pecking order, DP, I think there's a lot to unfold, right? Like there's still a whole lot of conversation outside of Brock Bowers being tight end 1, right? We know the mention of Jatavian Sanders, but if I challenge people to name the next 5 tight ends, right, I think some people may name 2 and be like, I don't know the rest, right? So this is that's what they're gonna say. I'm out. So I think it's gonna be really exciting as far as with this tight end conversation. I appreciate you mentioning his name, but DP, let's keep this thing going, man. I said DP. I don't mean any disrespect, right? I mean Coach DP, man, and Coach K is about to make an appearance, man. We're coming back with the game ball segment, man. We're hopping into the locker room. We're handing out the game ball segments for one of the best performances, right? I'm gonna go with a historic performance, DP. That's what I'm gonna tell you. I'm handing the game ball to a historic performance, DP. Coming up next, we're getting into this game ball segment.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL Draft has been brought to you by PrizePicks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Do you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players get injured. Guys, for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. This weekend on PrizePicks, guys, I am taking Baker Mayfield versus the Carolina Panthers for over 223.5 passing yards. Guys, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Coach DP's game ball has to go to a guy that just received his Senior Bowl invite and accepted it. Running back from Missouri, Cody Schrader. Cody Schrader, 29 carries, 128 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown versus that really good Ohio State defense, man. And Cody Schrader is, you're talking about a revelation. We've talked about him a few times on the pod this year, Keith. Listed at 5'9", 214 pounds, leading guy over for Missouri. That was a high octane offense. This season, 276 carries, 1,600 yards rushing, 14 touchdowns, average almost 6 yards per attempt, man. And just in a game that was one of the ugliest games of the bowl season
of the entire college football season.
Of the entire football season, 2-20.
The best thing about the game, DP, was just the lights, right? Like the stadium lighting. Like it looked good. The field looked good.
I thought you might say the best part of it is that was over once it was done.
Well, that part too.
When the clock struck 0, I was fine. I was like, yeah, it's over. I don't gotta watch
this as college football fans, I think we all just sat there like, what did we just watch?
What is going on? Ohio State. It was Ohio State's fault because they didn't have a quarterback.
They didn't have a quarterback. DP, it was player. Like I cut the TV on. I didn't watch the very beginning of the game. I think I cut it on I think in the second quarter. And I see a snap go to number 33. I'm like, okay, is this Wildcat? And then he takes the snap again. And I'm like, Okay, they're running back-to-back Wildcats. This is interesting. And then I realized that's their quarterback, right? And then he
Devin
goes out,
Brown.
comes back. I'm like, this is crazy, right? This is next
Devin
level.
Brown's the quarterback who decides to wear the number 33. That is a crime. That is a
Yeah,
crime in itself.
yeah,
So them
you
not
can't
having a
do that.
quarterback made that game very, because Missouri has all the offensive talent. And their defense was humming too. But it's just like, Ohio State didn't have anything offensively to bring to the table. But man, in a game that was ugly, you're talking about that MVP. It was Cody Schrader, man. This young man has run hard. He's been fast. He's quick, been able to exchange gaps. He can catch the ball in the backfield as well. It's going to be interesting where he lands on the running back pecking order for the NFL draft this season with so many guys going back and the talent pool somewhat diluted, I guess you could say. But this is a talented player. He's getting my game ball because he was the MVP of a game. Because if Missouri didn't have him, Keith, I don't know. Like that game could have probably went to like 15 overtimes, and they would just had to say, "Listen, it's a tie. We're just gonna scrap it from here on out because neither team can score." He was the main factor of why Missouri was able to get on the board.
Yep, and I say, you know what? Go directly to the NCAA, right? Go to the transfer, like because y'all should have figured this out, right? Because you knew this was coming when you combine the transfer portal to with transfers, in which I have no problem with. I'm all for players doing whatever they want. My problem is this: y'all didn't schedule this correctly, right?
Correct.
Like, what did y'all think was going to happen? So, DP, we had two New Year's 6 bowl games. We talk about the Georgia-Florida State game, also, right, which was a bad game. Ruined because nobody wanted to step in and do what they had to do as far as organizing this thing. They just want to take their hands off. It's like, okay, cool, but this is what the results gonna be. But DP, listen, I threw in my philosophy. I'm done with that. I'm about to throw on a coaching hat now, DP. And Coach K is here, man, and I'm here to hop in that locker room of the. How about them Cowboys, man? I ain't giving my game ball DP to CD Lamb, right? You go 13 receptions, 227 yards, and look unstoppable. The Lions didn't have an answer for him, for that game, right? And he balled out, man. Just had one of the historic wide receiver nights. And I wanted to get a game ball because I quickly wanted to present the conversation of wide receivers winning differently, and putting them in situations to win, right? And that's what you're seeing the Dallas Cowboys do with CD Lamb. And I think it's going to be interesting, DP, as we start to grade these guys out, get into these wide receivers, especially this deep wide receiver class. How do they go about it, right? Because who I thought about with CD Lamb? I kind of thought about Rome Odunze a little bit, right? Where Rome, you're not going to get that vertical, like just push down the field and he's going to be explosive, but he's that guy that's that savvy route runner, can work in between the hashes, working between the numbers, right? And then he can get open and he has the run after the catch ability because he appears to be strong enough to run through some tackles, right? And I thought about that, and that's not my comp. But I thought about that as far as with Rome and how when you talk about the blueprint for winning, right? Like how to win. So I wanted to give the game ball, obviously, to CD Lamb, but also, this is the draft podcast, right? So we talk about draft prospects and how to translate and how it unfolds. And so I wanted to kind of throw that conversation out there.
Keith, that's funny because you said that's not your comp, but that's kind of where I was leaning with my comp when I was watching Rome, getting ready for the college football playoffs and doing my draft report and everything. And what I wrote down was like comparable and similar and resembles CD Lamb and how they win. And 100%, I love that. CD Lamb he's elevated himself into that tier to me, Keith, where it's like defenses know week in and week out, CD Lamb is getting the ball. You know what I mean? If Dak Prescott's the DJ, he's got the CD for it, right? He's got the CD into the box, and he knows what tracks to play to get the crowd jumping. And he does such a good job. That chemistry they have is outstanding, man. Like those two dudes are on the same path almost every single time, and it's just criminal to me that CD Lamb is not talked about as after what he's done this year as one of the best receivers in 2023 in the NFL right now. He is on a tear. And what was he? Was a first-round pick. He was a first-round pick that some teams got a little cute with, I would say. He was my wide receiver, I think 3, if I remember correctly, out of that draft. I think 2 or 3. I think I had Jerry Jeudy above him. But, no, I think Justin Jefferson I had above him as well. But, like, this young man has really elevated his game, became one of the best in the game right now. Yak, route running, all like he's really savvy. He's just smooth. And that's why when you brought up Roma Dunze, I said, keep looking at my notes, man. That's how I feel about Rome. Smooth, just precise, can get to his spots with ease. And once he gets the ball in his hands, he turns into a different guy. He's just not trying to go down. He's not trying to go down easy. And you love that, man. So CeeDee Lamb to Roma Dunze, book it.
Yep, not man. And as the NFL changes, right? As NFL evaluators, you have to change, right? You have to adjust and understand that they're finding different ways to get guys open. They don't have to win how they traditionally won. And we're seeing it, right? And I think that's why I can't wait to jump back into the Rome conversation overall, and then also, dive back into the film and then really look at these wide receivers and then rank them 1 through whatever. But you know what? I'm starting to fall in love with more, DP, than even saying I like this wide receiver better than I like this. I like the process of saying, hey, I like this wide receiver for this team, right? I think that's the way I'm finding the good feeling or the good situation of how to utilize these guys and which scheme is best for them. But DP, I'll tell you this, man. What's best for us, man, is that we continue to knock out this Locked On NFL Draft podcast, man, because you know why? We're in draft season. We are rolling right now, man. And I want to say shout out to our everydayers, man. Listen, man, we have one of the hottest YouTube channels going right now, and that's all to y'all, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are seeing the results, man, play out day in and day out. So if you haven't hit that like button, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't commented, I told you at the beginning of the show, comment at the end of the show, right? Tell us what parts you like. Tell us what parts you dislike, man. And then go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that way you can hear more takes from us, man, because we do the work. We watch the film. We grind it. We have the conversations, man. So we are, I'm going to go say this, man. We are the best place to come for NFL draft content, man. So if you want more NFL draft content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And like we like to say, man, listen, you can find me, Keith Sanchez, on X at The Talent Code. You can find my co-host, man, Coach DP. You can find him on X at DP_NFL, man. And like we always say, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers, guys. Listen, on tomorrow's show, we have more. Listen, the rest of this week, man, we're getting into more prospects, scouting the Senior Bowl, more guys that's going to the Senior Bowl. We're going to break down off of what they've done on tape and what you need to be looking for, because the Senior Bowl is about 3 weeks out. Y'all, we got to get ready. So who's the best tandem and duo to get you ready? Here at the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.